Today, as always. So here's a look at some of the things that we have lined up for you in this first hour that we have here together. We all know that Chicago is a foodie town through and through, and when the prestigious Michelin Guide adds you to one of their lists, boy, it can be life-changing for a business owner, whether you're serving the finest of cuisine or maybe in this case, just some really great sandwiches. So I'm going to be talking with the owner of a hospitality group with some new claims to fame. Also, we're going to talk a lot about the dangerous temperatures outside, the nosedive that the temperatures are taking outside right now. Of course, at some point today, we'll be bringing up one of our meteorologists to kind of talk in detail about what we can expect over the next 24, 48 hours, so on and so forth. But there are just so many angles to cover when it comes to the cold outside, including one that we rarely see happen because of the forecast that we have in Chicago for the next few days here in this region. Metra has made the decision to operate reduced schedules on all of its lines, at least for Friday. We'll see where they go from here. They're going to be joining me around 1:15 for us to have that discussion. But first, the Council on Criminal Justice just released their year-end 2025 crime trends this morning with data from 40 large U.S. cities here in America, including Chicago, of course. So we're getting the details and seeing if their finding kind of match up with what we've been hearing lately from CPD. So now with some more information for us all, Senior Research Specialist Ernesto Lopez, who is one of the authors of the report. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So you all examined changes in 13 offenses. Let's go over what those offenses were first and foremost, and then get into what you all found.
Sure. The offenses we cover are generally the most commonly measured violent crimes and property crimes, ranging from homicides, aggravated assaults, robberies, to motor vehicle thefts, shoplifting in this case, and carjackings, including drug offenses.
Mm-hmm. So if we're going down that list, what were some of the differences that you saw year to year?
Well, I think one of the biggest differences that stands out is the potentially historic one-year decline in homicide from 2024 to 2025. I say potentially because it's based off a sample of cities, but it looks likely that once all the data are in and reported by the FBI, that should come out at some point a little later this year. It looks like that those big declines we're seeing are going to hold. What we're seeing nationally for our sample is from 2024 to 2025, we're finding a 21% decline in homicide. Looking a little bit longer, from 2019 to 2025, that's at 25%. And then I'll just note, when we look even longer, it looks like 2025 potentially could be the lowest homicide rate going all the way back to 1900.
Wow, that is so significant. And so is that nationally? And what are we seeing for Chicago specifically?
Well, our study is based off a sample of cities, but when we look at other sources such as the data that the FBI have through September and some other sources that go a little bit later, if we assume there's a 20% decline, we're finding 21%. It will be a well below a historic value. Actually, if it only ends up being about a 12% decline, it'll still be a historic low. And that's really because homicide has been declining the last 3 years across the nation. And we look at Chicago, that year-over-year drop from 24 to 25 is about 31%. And then taking a longer look from the pre-pandemic, so pre-2020 level to 2025, it's about an 18% decline. And though our report doesn't really track homicide trends for individual cities over a longer period of time, I do know that that the 2025 rate in Chicago is in line with some of the rates going back to the 1960s.
1960s. Wow. And yeah, we have heard from CPD here locally that the rates were going down in terms of homicide, but it's good to hear that from multiple agencies kind of all concurring with the same findings here. And it seems like everyone agrees that the crimes are going down, although in D.C. There were accusations as the outgoing chief was leaving her post that they were cooking the books because all of a sudden we saw the crime numbers go down. But is it really or can we say that the reasons behind the changes have seemingly gotten very political?
It's hard to say if the reasons have gotten political, but I'll just note that when it comes to, any agency sort of cooking the books, if you will, is not going to generally play a large role here because what we're seeing is trends all across the US from independent agencies, right? So even if a city is misclassifying offenses, that is not going to have a large shift. And so the fact that we see all these crime types trending the same direction, right? All violent crimes trending downward. Maybe not to the scale of homicide, but we are seeing them trend downward all across different cities in the U.S., all sorts of political leanings. That suggests it's not just a mistake, an error, accidental or intentional. So I think that's one important part. And the other is also not really claiming a particular cause to these declines. It's really complicated. They've been going on for a few years, and that says nothing about the historic one-year increase from 2019 to 2020 we saw across the US. So the bottom line here is that homicide in particular has been volatile the last several years, and we need to do a lot more investigating to determine how we are hitting this historic low.
Yeah, everyone would kind of like to plant a flag and say it's because of what I've done, versus it is very nuanced as to seeing all of these numbers take a dip. What do you think it is about or was about the pandemic? I mean, obviously, we're learning more and more about the pandemic itself and maybe some of the effects it had on us as a society. But what are some of the things that you all are finding that had so many of these crimes reaching peaks during the pandemic?
Yeah, a lot of these crimes, particularly homicide, did reach that peak. Some others were declining. Shoplifting, for instance, saw a major decline because of the stores being closed, people not being able to go out and shop. It's difficult to say what it could be. There was some evidence that 2020 could have been a little higher before March, before the lockdowns, before the pandemic really took hold. But there wasn't that much data to look at. But I think really when you want to understand 2020, it's just a lot is going on. You have the pandemic, you have those, change in routine activities of people just in close proximity together and the stress. But then you also get the murder of George Floyd. And when you look at the homicide rates, they spike more than usual in the summer. Most places see summer increases, but really that summer of 2020 was such an astronomical spike. But that's not to say that the murder of George Floyd and the responses after that, whether changes of policing or protests, drove that increase, but rather it's the merging of just all the events of 2020, right? The stress of the pandemic, the stress of just the social unrest, changes in the economy, a lot going on in 2020.
Yeah, I remember doing a story in 2020 with a psychologist actually about her outlook on what was happening during that time frame, and she kind of described it as a lot of pots on burners. And as things were happening, things were just boiling over, the pots there. So there are a few things that you kind of break down as to why we may be seeing the things that we're seeing today, the trends going in a positive direction. You talk about big swings in criminal justice policies. Let's expound more on that.
So that's really what we're expecting there is really at the individual city level. So a lot of cities, in response to the increase in 2020, adopted different violence interruption programs or crime prevention programs. And it really just depends on the city of what they adopted. Some did do a sort of a focused deterrence program or where they sort of identify people who are at the highest risk of violence and attend to, you know, pr get those people involved in programming so that they don't commit future offenses or retaliate in some cases. You see changes in policing, I think a lot more focus on data. There's been, I think, some movement towards like more place-based interventions. So even things like focusing on street lighting and, beautification of areas. So I think in response to the high crime, particularly homicide in 2020, a lot of individual cities did different things. Uh, so that's one. But something we note in the report is any claim, whether it's even a federal claim, right, with immigration, or a local claim with violence prevention, we need more rigorous evidence. But that we saw a lot of cities adopt what we call evidence-based policies is really a good first step. But we need to ensure that cities are still continuing to measure if those programs are being implemented and as designed, and if they are continuing to be successful.
Yeah, and I guess that goes into more of the political angle of it because there are many arguments that funding is going away for some of those
Yes.
things. So, how would you be able to qualify it moving forward if the funding is gone?
Correct. We've documented changes to funding, but what's unknown is has that funding been backfilled by other organizations, right? Other nonprofit philanthropic groups. That's one aspect to it that's difficult to measure. But I think whenever it comes to funding decisions, they should be evidence-based, right? Of what's working, what's not working, and require people to report results. Um, I don't have any deep knowledge into exactly how the funding cuts were made when it came to these programs, but I know they've been devastating to a lot of local criminal justice agencies. So I think that's a big part of it. But there's also the question of is this a broader social shift? Because in 2014, prior to this, was one of the lowest years in homicide as well. So I think it's a really complicated picture when it comes to what's really driving this decline. Is it, and I don't think it's solely broad social changes that we highlight in the report, nor is it solely these violence intervention programs. Instead, it's both of these factors working together to bring us to a historic low.
Yeah, instead of an and or a both and, two things can be true for sure. Another thing that you all noted were big advances in crime fighting technologies. Like what?
So what we're seeing in that sense is, I think it's not necessarily so much of the immediate deterrence of police being able to immediately intervene with a crime, but I think a lot of it is to support investigation. Things like license plate readers, certain other sorts of like facial recognition technology that they're exploring. So I think that's a big part of it. Um, Also, something that's a little bit older, but a lot of police departments are implementing it when it comes to just tracking crime. I think that is something that a lot of agencies have adopted the last several years, is being able to sort of geocode, right, where crimes are happening. And a place like Chicago has been doing that for a long time. But other cities with more reduced resources didn't really have that capability. But now law enforcement has a lot more intelligence of when crime happens, where it happens, even the placement of cameras throughout a city can help identify where crime is occurring. But I think it's also important to note that while these technologies are helpful, they shouldn't replace law enforcement, but they augment law enforcement. They strengthen law enforcement's ability to improve public safety.
Yeah, I mean, the more tools that they have at their resource, the better they're able to kind of gather that data to be more specific about what they're looking for and to prevent things some things before they even happen. Tell us a little bit more about the Council on Criminal Justice that you work for.
Sure. The Council on Criminal Justice is a nonpartisan think tank organization that advances evidence-based policies in the criminal justice space.
And how do you address this issue of like actual data? I think we have this conversation a lot when reports like this come out. There's actual data that comes out versus a perception problem. When you can say, "Oh, homicides are down," but people don't really still feel safe.
Yeah, well, I think when we look at the data, that's true. We do see from the most recent perception data that the people are generally feeling safer. It appears to track with large shifts in homicide. And there could be a whole variety of reasons for that. But I think at the end of the day, when we want to understand safety, it's multifaceted. It's what do the conditions on the street look like? Does the street look dangerous? How do people feel about the world generally? So these are things that we find in the research that could influence perceptions. But it's also important for, well, it's just as important for a police department to, you know, show the numbers and show where they're going. It's equally, if not even more important, to recognize that in many communities in the U.S., violence is still a serious problem. Chicago is no different than any other large city where there's still concentrated pockets of violence. There are dangerous places in many parts of the United States, and so it makes perfect sense that people don't feel safe because unfortunately we have a fairly large share of our population who is unsafe. So cities should not, while cities should view this as positive news, and so should policymakers and those involved in the legal profession. It's not time to pull off yet, to take our foot off the gas, because we still have, even with a historic low in homicide, our homicide rate is potentially still a fair amount above other cities in like Europe, for instance.
Very interesting discussion. Thank you so much for sharing more details from the report and taking a little time to talk with me today.
Yeah, thank you again for having me.
All right. Take care. 1:16, everyone. Let's take a quick break, just 2 minutes. Our next guest is already here, so we'll bring you back in for that next discussion after this. Welcome back, everybody. Just before 1:20 right now, and we are experiencing and getting ready to even more so extreme cold temperatures here in Chicagoland. As we give you this live look outside, yes, of course, it's a sunny day. We appreciate the sun making an appearance here, but you can just see from each different vantage point here, it's cold, icy out there on the lake, and boy, we have not hit the bottom yet. We haven't gotten as cold as we're going to go just yet. So there are many things that are changing. If you go to our website, we have a list of the many schools that are either closed for tomorrow or they're going to be doing some e-learning tomorrow. But also we got to notice that Metra is going to have reduced schedules for tomorrow due to the cold. So we want to bring in Meg Thomas Riley from Metra. And ironically enough, Meg was our very first guest on Chicago Live when we began. So we appreciate being able to call back on you from hot now to cold.
Correct. I didn't know that. Thank you. Learned something new today.
So tell us what makes you all like, what is there a set temperature at which you all say, okay, we've got to switch things up? Or like, what are the metrics that say we've got to make a change?
A lot of it has to do with temperature, especially in this case. In some cases, it would also be snow forecast. But in this case, it's temperature. When we're looking at, especially since it's going to be, even though it's lower today, it's going to be a much more radical change. And metal and plastic and all the components get much more brittle during this type of change. And we've already been dealing with it with the ups and downs over the past few weeks with what rail brakes, or what we call pull aparts, which is a brake, but it's a different type of brake. Anyway, not to get too technical here. But those do impact service. You can't run a train over it without risking derailing it and making the situation worse. But we also have to look at our crews, the conditions we're putting them out there in there, because safety's the overwhelming object of all of this, keeping our passengers safe and keeping our employees safe. So when we make a decision like this, the last time we did this was in the polar vortex of 2019. Now, we have had other polar vortexes since then, but because of COVID and reduced schedules, it wasn't as necessary. So after 2019, we really looked at it, because it's great to promise people service, but you need to be able to deliver. Our goal is to be reliable. And if you put a bunch of trains out there and one of them has a problem because of the weather, then you basically, everything stacks up behind. We end up people stuck on trains. We also are leaving people out in the cold. And that's not our goal. And also, since COVID, frankly, a lot more people have the option of working from home.
Yeah.
They have the ability to do it. Corporate world has adapted to it. So it used to be everybody had to show up, come down here, and, no matter what. And I think we discovered in 2011 that wasn't a great idea for a lot of us. And so, it's a learning curve. And our goal is to make sure that people who absolutely have to travel can get there and get there safely and efficiently as we can. And that means reducing the number of trains we run to minimize hazards, minimize switching moves, which can be an area where there's much more pressure on the rail gets brittle. And if we have something go wrong, then we end up trapping people, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we look at it, we took it serious. We looked at our past performance of promising and not being able to deliver to our high standards. So we went at this and went, okay, what can we do to make sure that people who need to travel can get to their jobs, and then keep it, and that the service is available. It's just going to be at a reduced level so that we can keep to our promises.
Well,
and that's really how we look at it.
Yeah, and all of those things are super important, from the safety of your employees to the safety of the passengers and so many other things. When we talk about a reduced schedule, what does that look like?
What it looks like is closer for most of our lines to a Saturday schedule. BNSF and I think the UP North are a little different, because essentially they have the same schedules. I mean, we've broadened our service on weekends post-pandemic in some areas, and they have essentially the same service both days. So it's close to that. And then on the lines that don't have weekend service, it's a reduced schedule, but there are still trains operating. So if people looked back to, say, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, it's pretty much the same as what we ran then.
Okay, all right.
Recognizing people needed to get places, but that we weren't going to have as many people. And it also, as luck would have it, this is happening on a Friday, which is traditionally our lowest ridership day of the week. It's actually 35 to 40% lower than it is on other weekdays. So there's also, we don't need to be exposing ourselves and putting service out there when the people aren't going to be riding it anyway. And now that CPS has canceled and other major school systems have started canceling, I think we're all moving in the same direction with this decision. Let's not put people out there unless we have to.
Yeah, very interesting that a part of this is really supply and demand. I mean, if people aren't going to be out there anyway, as much as they would be on normal days, and if Friday is already a day when a lot of people, it may still be in that flex schedule, and Friday isn't a day that they have to come into the city or something of that sort, just kind of meeting people where they are. A common topic that comes up around this time of year when people are driving around or walking around and you see like a fire on the tracks and they're like, whoa, should I call 911? What's going on over there? Explain that.
Okay, we only have one location where that exists anymore, but those are gas-fired switch heaters, and that location is A2, and it is a critical juncture in our railroad. It is the busiest switching point essentially in the Midwest. Our railroad crosses there, the UP commuter lines cross there, Amtrak's, there's more than 350 train moves a day through that junction. So the way it's constructed doesn't allow us to use newer technologies, which would be like hot air blowers and things like that. So unless there's money available for a major capital investment, which would include a major reconfiguration of that juncture, we have to go with this older technology, which is essentially the equivalent of having your gas grill, just multiples out there, burning just to keep the switches warm so ice doesn't build up and we're able to move trains through. Because, like I said, we have 350 plus train movements through there a day. We need that to be functioning.
What are some of the other added maintenance, levels that you all have to do?
Yeah. So there are three main divisions of a railroad: transportation, which are conductors, engineers, customer service employees. Now, what we're doing with them is, although we have a reduced schedule, we are keeping some extra crews on at outlying points so that if we do have some sort of breakdown, we're able to get someone on equipment and get a rescue train out there as soon as possible. Probably won't be as fast as maybe a person involved might want it, but it's our goal to be able to do that. We also, on the mechanical end, they take care of all the equipment. They're out there increasing their inspections of the equipment. And I understand that when we also have a little snow on the ground, and anytime there's super cold and super snow, we've got to look at our braking systems on our wheels. And something that is a 5-minute job can become a 40-minute job. When to look at the brake pad, you've got to hack a bunch of ice out. And we're keeping the locomotives powered up all night long, refueling at outlying points, reduces that. That minimizes, usually in the yards closer to town, we separate the locomotive from the rail cars to do the refilling midday. And that can create a problem because anytime you're separating equipment or messing with something, essentially in this type of weather, you create an opportunity for a failure. So we try to minimize that. Then we have our engineering and signal crews, and those are the guys who build the tracks, maintain the signals, maintain those switches we were just talking about. And we have those guys are going to be out there on like 12-hour shifts, but 24/7, so there's constantly someone and deployed to different areas so that they can quickly respond to mitigate any problems as they come up. And then we also, back to mechanical, we also have created what we call go teams. So they will have trucks and be able to quickly respond should there be a mechanical failure out on the railroad, and we can get to them and get the train moving as quickly as possible.
There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that we never see, that we have to be grateful for to get us back moving again. And again, goes into the measures that you all take. So one of the things that we've been talking about in terms of like piping and things of that nature for homes or for even businesses is prolonged bouts of cold, the effect that prolonged bouts of cold have. So for you all, I mean, you're taking this measure for Friday at least.
We're
is there
out there until the weather breaks. Those crews are going to be out there. So they're going to be on long shifts. And, in addition to the prolonged, it's the same way with heat. Prolonged exposure on both ends of the temperature spectrum affect the equipment, affect the rail, but they also affect the human beings. So we do have to take extra care with our employees and really preach it to them to give themselves breaks, rotate, so that you're not exposed for too long, because the effects are also cumulative on the human body. And safety has to be the number one. So making sure they have appropriate clothing, equipment provided to them to keep themselves warm, but that they understand the importance of staying hydrated and taking breaks.
Yeah, even when it's cold, for sure. Is there any possibility, was what I wanted to ask you here, that you all would extend the reduced schedules?
Well, since it's the forecast, it would depend on the forecast. Right now, the forecast is, going to take it through the weekend. Well, we already have reduced schedules for the weekend, which are closer to what we're running on Friday. So we'll pretty much be running the same service, maybe except for the lines, the North Central service, the Heritage Corridor, and the Southwest service, which already do not have weekend service. So we wouldn't be running any trains on them on Saturday or Sunday. But it's expected to break before, by Monday, where it'll come back up in, while still cold, not this sub-zero range
Yeah.
that we're dealing with.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully everything is back to normal-ish for winter, at least, by Monday. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. And again, we appreciate all the work that happens behind the scenes. You are so correct that when something does go wrong, we're like, fix it now. So thank you so much for what you all do on a regular
We're all
basis.
standing here doing the same thing at Metro, too. Go fix it now. It's like, how about you just give me time to fix it?
Right. Thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you.
All right. 1:32, everyone. Let's take another quick break, just 2 minutes, and we're going to move on with our conversations. I'm hoping that we'll have our owner of Meadowlark Hospitality up next so we can talk about a new claim to fame for the city of Chicago. Okay, everyone, it's 1:35 right now, and among the 7 best sandwiches in North America, according to the new Michelin Guide, one of them is right here in the city of Chicago. So excited to hear more details from Steve Lewis, the owner of Meadowlark Hospitality. Congratulations to you all.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing well. Okay, so Lardon is in Logan Square. Tell us about this award-winning sandwich now.
Sure. So we've been open since 2021. The sandwich has been on the menu since day one. It's our Italiano. It's always been one of our fan favorites, and it's amazing to be recognized for such a cool thing. I think what makes the sandwich so special is that everything we do at Lardon is we have an in-house curing room. So everything that's on that sandwich is made in-house, and specifically the meats are cured in-house. So it's got a salami calabrese, which takes about a month or a month and a half to cure.
Whoa.
Then our spicy andouille, which is a spreadable salumi, which really gives it kind of that nice, sharp, peppery funk to it. And then we've just put on our house cured capicola. So the capicola is our only cooked cured meat, but it adds a nice little smoky element to it. So and a great texture. It's got a house jardiniere. It's got about 10 ingredients in that. You got to have a jardiniere in a Chicago sandwich. But all in all, I think it best represents what we do as a restaurant with our curing program. So we're happy to have it being recognized, and we're happy to serve people. We're almost selling out each day that people come in to get it. So it's amazing feeling to be recognized for stuff like that.
Steve, oh my goodness, I ate lunch before coming up here to Studio 32, and suddenly I'm hungry again now after hearing all of that. So, when you say that it's almost selling out already, what does getting on the Michelin Guide do? I mean, are you all ready for this?
Sure. Well, we've been on the Michelin Guide, the Bib Gourmand Guide, since we opened, or we got recognized in 2022. So it's been 4 years. So it's nice that we're being recognized for all of our food programs, whether it's our charcuterie program, the sandwiches, our pre-feed dinners, kind of the bistro style menu that we have at night. But it's great to be recognized for something that's so accessible and simple. I think that when people think of the Michelin list and the stars and whatnot, being able to be on the guide or the gourmand list, I think is really neat in the sense that it's something that you can get. It's something that you can order to go or have delivered. As it comes to running out, that's something that we're working on. So, like I said, anything that goes on that sandwich takes anywhere from a couple weeks to a month and a half to make. So we're making sure that we've got plenty of production in our curing room. Curing room holds up. It's got about 500 pounds in it right now, so we're making sure to add that to it. We buy all of our bread from a local baker here in Chicago, so we're upping those bread orders and making sure that we've got plenty to sell.
I love, Steve, that I'm like, are you all ready for this? You're like, we're not new to this. We're true to this. This is our latest achievement. I like it. I like it. What does it say, though, for you all? I mean, tell me about, starting the business and watching it grow like this.
Sure. I think that in starting it, I guess when I decided to open in Logan Square, it's my neighborhood, which is where I live. I wanted to have a neighborhood restaurant. Kind of my aspirations were much more of a simple concept. And my chef partner at the time, Chef Chris Thompson, he and I kind of joined forces. I had always wanted to do cured meats. Chris had a wealth of experience in curing meats, so he had been doing it for years in San Francisco and Denver, and then here in Chicago. So Chris really helped elevate, what we do from our curing program. He's the original mastermind of the sandwich. So I got to give him some credit. But I think that, for us, we've always wanted to build a place that's central to the neighborhood. And I think that that's something that we achieve day in and day out. We have very much cafe vibes, and whether it's our coffee program, our pastries, our sandwiches, the cured meats, whatever it is, it's all rooted in, who works in our restaurant, what the service we give, the connection to the neighborhood. So we're happy to be in Logan Square. We're happy to keep going and to keep making more sandwiches.
Yeah, and when you say we're going to keep going. I mean, does something like this make you more inspired to create some new things? Like, what haven't you done that you're kind of eyeing now?
Well, when it comes to sandwiches and cured meats, our chef team's always super innovative. So they're always coming up with sandwich specials and new stuff to put on a menu, or stuff that, we see that works and stuff that doesn't work. And we pivot. All of our cured meats, we have kind of our standard lineup that we do, whether it's spreadable meats, whole muscle meats, cured meat, or ground meats. But we're always coming up with new flavors. But what I really think, and what we're excited about always, is just kind of broadening our food program. So it's doing things like Restaurant Week, where we've got a $60 pre-fee dinner menu that we're going to be featuring for the next 2 weeks. It's making sure that our evening food programs really kind of carry over the true talents of our chef team. We share a kitchen with our sister restaurant Union. We're also Gourmand recognized. So I think that we've got some really, really amazing cooks and chefs in the kitchen. And, for me, that's our goal, to continue to add another dynamic to our restaurant, which is, in our PM lunch, or our dinner service.
And you, again, are the owner of the Meadowlark Hospitality Group. So this is one of your restaurants. Tell me about your profile, your full profile.
Sure. I think all elements connect. All of the restaurants or bars have a similar theme or ethos to them, and it's all rooted in, really great products, great service, great ambiance, atmosphere, but all being very, I think, local and connected to the neighborhood that we're in. So over on our building over at California and Palmer and Logan Square, we share the property with our sister restaurant Union, which is chef-driven New American restaurant. We've got a big whiskey and craft beer program. And then we also have we're housing our fun cocktail concept, which is called the Meadowlark. So we're North America's 50 best bar. It's great to kind of have all these things interplay with each other, where our beverage director works at all of our concepts. Our chef team have their hands in each of these concepts. So a lot of the spillover and the ethos that maybe we put into our cocktail program at Meadowlark, it spills over into Lardone or into Union, or kind of the chef-driven notions and the plates that we put out in Union really kind of make their way into the other concepts. So it's nice to be able to have this fun interplay over at California. And then we just opened a pizza spot, a wood-fired pizza spot in Avondale. So that's actually where I'm at right now. We're called the Little Lark, and so we do Neapolitan wood-fired pizzas. We opened just at the end of the summer in August, and so we're having fun with that one too.
Super cool, and congratulations. Now, do you use the cured meat in other places other than Lardone?
We have to be careful because we can only make so much, which is the fun thing about it, but also the thing that's difficult to work with is that when we run out, we run out. But what's cool is that we're using a lot of the cured meats over at Little Lark to put into our pizza program over here. So whether it's our finocchiona, which is our fennel salame, we use andouille in some stuff. We're going to put a pizza on in a little bit that features our guanciale. So it's really nice that we can take some of these elements that we do at Lardone and spread them to the other concepts. So we do it in small doses, but at the end of the day, we still want each restaurant and each concept to really be its own thing. So we try not to serve the same dishes or the complete dishes in all the restaurants, but much more you see little bits and pieces that kind of flare between either restaurant or common themes from our whole animal butchery program. So those are really the things that were easy to have interplay between each restaurant.
Yeah. Did you ever dream? I mean, when you were starting, a lot of people have a concept in their head, but did you ever dream of seeing all of this success?
I think that with any kind of success, I mean, you're glad that it happens and you welcome it. But I think that in starting everything, my goal has always been to put good product on a plate or in a glass, have the guest experience, have guests come away with a really positive experience. And so I think, as coming from my experience as a restaurant operator, as long as we stick to those things and as long as we continue to create an environment that's welcoming, that's fun, that people want to come back to, and we do the right things and we stick to our ethos and what our mantra is. I think success follows, and so I don't think it comes the other way around where you try to get on a list or this or that. I think that doing the right thing day after day really kind of opens up doors for others to recognize what you can do well.
Sure, absolutely. I love your thought process on that. And I think the flip side that I want maybe you to talk a little bit more about, when people do have success and everyone's seeing you on these lists and seeing you open new restaurants, they're like, oh, I mean, they're winning. How hard has it been to achieve these things?
Well, tomorrow it's supposed to be in the negative degrees here in Chicago. So I think that one thing that, we live and die by is the seasonality of Chicago and the seasons here. Obviously, people come out and spend less money here in the winter when it's cold. But I think, again, establishing yourself as a neighborhood place where people either only have to walk a block or it's super close to get to, that's what we try to do. And that's what we try to give people again and again, and something that's predictable that they can expect of, having a great opportunity to experience good food and drink. But yeah, I mean, it is tough that with our global economy and things that are happening across the city, some weeks it's tough being a restaurant with a lot of high rising costs, things like that. But, we try to keep our head down and continue to do the right thing and continue to stick to the plan of just doing good things and putting out tasty food. And sometimes you just got to hope for the best or weather the storm until that what goes around comes around sometimes.
Sometimes we all have to weather a storm or two. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on all of the success, the hard work that is paying off for you. The Italiano, we've got to all try it there at Lardone in Logan Square and much more. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Perfect conversation to have. Tomorrow, restaurant week starts. Yeah. Go on out there. Try some of those restaurants. He was already talking about the free prefixed menu. I think restaurant week is a perfect time to try some new things, some new places, some new things. And again, here in Chicago, it starts tomorrow. So great conversation. Timely conversation. And there's another conversation that's happening in D.C. right now that we're going to take you to live here. Paris Hilton, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Laurel Lee, and other lawmakers there are urging lawmakers to pass this Disrupt Explicit Forged Images and Non-Consensual Edits Act. This has to do with AI being used to create different types of images. Let's listen in.
Experiences. Your courage, your voices, your willingness to help us shape this legislation are the reason that we are here. And I also want to thank Paris Hilton for her advocacy and for using her platform to shine a national light on this issue. Your leadership has helped bring long overdue attention to the harm that victims face. Deepfakes are not harmless, and they are not victimless. They are deliberate digital forgeries, often sexual in nature, created to exploit, harass, and humiliate. The technology to make them is becoming more accessible and more widespread. And while the images and the videos may be fake, the harm they cause is very real. Victims have seen their reputations destroyed, their careers derailed, their mental health profoundly affected. And for too long, our laws have lagged behind this technology. Victims have been left without clear, consistent legal tools when their likeness is stolen and weaponized without their consent. The Defiance Act closes that gap. This legislation creates a clear federal civil remedy for victims of non-consensual, sexually explicit digital forgeries. It allows victims to hold accountable those who knowingly create, distribute, or solicit this material, or who recklessly disregard the lack of consent. It provides a meaningful statute of limitations for victims who might not discover this abuse right away. And it includes strong privacy protections so survivors are not further traumatized simply for seeking justice. Passing the Defiance Act is about something very simple and very important: restoring dignity, restoring accountability, and restoring justice. It draws a clear line. Those who create and spread this material will be held accountable, and victims will finally have real protections and real recourse under the law. This bill shows what is possible when we put victims ahead of politics. I am committed to working with my colleagues in the House to see this legislation enacted so perpetrators face consequences for their actions and victims across the country finally have the protections they deserve. It is my great pleasure to introduce one of our strongest advocates. We are so grateful to have her with us here today, Ms. Paris Hilton.
Thank you, everyone. I want to thank the bipartisan group of lawmakers standing beside me today, and thank you to every woman, girl, and survivor who's watching. You are the reason that I'm here. It's been 1 year since I stood at the Capitol and passed the Stop Institutional Child Abuse Act. That legislation was deeply personal because I was one of those children. A teenager taken from my home in the middle of the night, locked away, mistreated, and silenced. Coming back to the Capitol, I feel something new. Strength. I didn't always feel strong, but telling the truth again and again is how I found my power. And I want to use that power now to speak about something that I've never fully said aloud. When I was 19 years old, a private, intimate video of me was shared with the world without my consent. People called it a scandal. It wasn't. It was abuse. There were no laws at the time to protect me. There weren't even words for what had been done to me. The internet was still new, and so was the cruelty that came with it. They called me names, they laughed and made me the punchline. They sold my pain for clicks. And then they told me to be quiet, to move on, to even be grateful for the attention. These people didn't see me as a young woman who had been exploited. They didn't see the panic that I felt, the humiliation or the shame. No one asked me what I lost. I lost control over my body, over my reputation. My sense of safety and self-worth was stolen from me. And I've fought hard to get those things back. And I believed that the worst was behind me, but it wasn't. Because today, what happened to me then is happening now, to millions of women and girls in a new and more terrifying way. Before, someone had to betray your trust and steal something real. Now, all it takes is a computer and a stranger's imagination. Deep fake pornography has become an epidemic. I know today that there are over 100,000 explicit deepfake images of me made by AI. 100,000 circulating the internet. Not one of them is real. Not one of them is consensual. And each time a new one appears, that horrible feeling returns. That fear that someone, somewhere, is looking at it right now and thinking it's real. No amount of money or lawyers can stop or protect me from more. It's the newest form of victimization happening at scale to your daughters, your sisters, your friends, and neighbors. A staggering 1 in 8 girls today are experiencing the harms of AI-generated deepfake porn. I hear from teenage girls who are terrified to go to school because they know a deepfake of them is circulating. I hear from women who are scared to run for office, to apply for jobs, to speak publicly, because they know how easily their image can be weaponized against them. Too many women are afraid to exist online, or sometimes to exist at all. And I know how that feels, because I've lived it. And now I have a daughter. She's just 2.5 years old, and I would go to the ends of the earth to protect her. But I can't protect her from this. Not yet. And that's why I'm here. Because this isn't about just technology, it's about power. It's about someone using someone's likeness to humiliate, silence, and strip them of their dignity. But victims deserve more than after the fact apologies. We deserve justice. The Defiance Act is a bipartisan bill that gives survivors a path to justice. This is personal to me. It's part of my story. I began telling my truth in my documentary, This is Paris, and more in my memoir. Next week, I'm releasing my film, Infinite Icon, the next chapter in my healing journey. I am lucky. I had the platform to reclaim my story, but so many others don't. And what I've learned is this: when your image is violated, it doesn't disappear. It lives inside you, but so does your power. Telling the truth has helped me heal, and I'm so proud that today I stand here without shame. I am Paris Hilton, a woman, a wife, a mom, a survivor, and what was done to me was wrong. And I will keep telling the truth to protect every woman, every girl, every survivor, now and for the future. Last week, the Senate passed Defiance by unanimous consent. Today, I stand here with Congresswomen Ocasio-Cortez and Lee, asking Congress to pass the Defiance Act through the House. Let's finally make it law. Thank you.
And now I want to introduce Francesca Manny.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today at this press conference for the Defiance Act. It is my pleasure to stand here with the powerful women surrounding me. Congresswoman AOC, Congresswoman Lee, Miss Paris Hilton, and my mom. My name is Francesca Manny, and I'm a 17-year-old high school student from New Jersey, bringing awareness to this crucial legislation. When I was 14, back in 2023, I became a confirmed victim of AI-generated deepfakes at my high school. That day, my name was called over the loudspeaker, and the administration told me there couldn't be any accountability because no laws existed. So I told them, I will bring you a law. At that time, only 3 states had AI deepfake laws. Today, in 2026, all 50 states have them. Plus, federal protections like the Take It Down Act. But we need more. That's why I'm advocating for the Defiance Act. This bipartisan bill provides a private right of action, allowing victims to sue those who produce, distribute, or solicit non-consensual deepfake intimate images. It defines these as AI-created forgeries without affirmative, conscious, competent, and voluntary consent, with remedies like damages up to $250,000 and a 10-year statute of limitations. Let's state the facts. 1. We've identified the problem, the rapid rise of non-consensual imagery affecting women and teens, with 1 in 8 kids aged 13 to 20 knowing a victim. 2. We need laws for real accountability. 3. This shifts the focus from victims' feelings to perpetrators. Who gave you the permission? In my case, I wasn't even friends with the bad actors. I don't know how they got my image, but that's not my fault, it's theirs. Advocates often highlight victims' harms: academic, professional, emotional, physical. All very real. But the key message
Again, we were listening in there to a bipartisan group of women led, yes, by Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Representative Laurel Lee, so a Democrat and a Republican, New York and Florida there. And you can see Representative Nancy Mace standing right behind the young lady who is telling her story right now. All of them together to urge more lawmakers to pass this Disrupt Explicit Forged Images and Non-Consensual Non-Consensual Edits Act, or the Defiance Act, is what you're seeing on many of the signs behind them. As you heard, it unanimously passed the Senate last week, but now it still has to get through some more hoops and hurdles here. It would allow victims of non-consensual deepfake pornography to sue individuals who produce and distribute some of that content that we're seeing more and more these days. And to go back to, Paris Hilton's comment there, she said she has the platform to reclaim her story, but so many other women and people in general do not when they end up in a deep fake. And so something like this would help them to have some type of way to get accountability for what takes place, again, online with these deep fakes. All right, it is 2:01 right now. We're going to take another quick break, just 2 minutes, and then I'll line up everything that you can expect for our 2 o'clock hour. .203 right now, everyone. Thanks so much for being here in our second hour of Chicago Live. We're going to talk a lot about the extreme cold temperatures that we are and will be for the next few days experiencing outside from a few different angles. Around 2:45, we expect our chief meteorologist to come upstairs here to Studio 32 and break down the details of this forecast as they're really firming up exactly what we can expect for the weekend. Around 2:30, we're going to talk a little bit more about something that was even mentioned in our first hour. When we were speaking with a representative from Metra, one of the things that she began to talk about was the shifting habits of riders and how many people, or the lack thereof, are coming downtown as much, especially at certain time periods, because people's lives have really changed since the pandemic. Well, we're also seeing, because more people are kind of shifting their habits, more conversions of commercial buildings to homes. And so we're going to be talking with a retail developer or a development company who will be talking about what they are getting ready to do with a plot of land and a lot of money behind them for that effort. At 2:15, really looking forward to this conversation with Olive Harvey about the barbers that they are mentoring and really teaching young men and women new trades that they'll be able to use for many years to come. But right now, the conversation about the cold from the perspective of OEMC, or the Office of Emergency Management for the city. I want to go ahead and bring in Mac Dowdy, who is the manager for Emergency Management Services. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
All right, so we got out an alert as we get ready for these temperatures to continue to just slide over the next few hours here into tonight and throughout the weekend here. Tell me how you all are responding.
Sure. First and foremost, we're just really getting the message of personal preparedness out, which is why we're thankful to have avenues like this. If there's one message that we want to really emphasize more than others, it's that everyone should please limit your time outside during this cold spell. Symptoms of frostbite can develop within 10 to 15 minutes on exposed skin. So really, when you go outside, we want to make sure that you're dressed in warm, loose layers, that your clothing is dry and no moisture. And also you want to limit time outside for your pets. They're just as sensitive as we are. If you have a jacket or a sweater for your pets, we certainly encourage you to use them when you take them outside.
Yeah, I mean, the tips are important for both people and for our furry family members as well. And yes, there are things that we can be doing now to prepare ourselves. What are some of the things that you all will be offering over the next few days? What the city is offering over the next few days to help people who may not have the resources that others may?
Sure. As always, we have a network of warming centers that are activated during normal operational hours. So this can include anything from our Department of Family and Support Services community centers to Chicago Public Libraries, to Park District facilities, and even our police stations, which of course are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also, encourage everybody to check on their friends and neighbors, or if you need to request a well-being check, we encourage you to contact 311. You can either call them directly at 311 or reach out to them via their website or our website, our OEMC app, which allows you to contact 311 as well.
I mean, how long have you been with OEMC?
Since 2007.
Tell me, what the metric is. I asked the same of Metra because they, are going to be changing some of their lines, the schedules over the next few days. So what is the metric that you all use? We're looking at wind chills as low as 35 below zero, but what is the metric that you all use to enact some of the things that you will be over the next few days?
Well, the good news is no matter what the weather is, we have operational coordination systems in place that take place every day, starting with our twice a day conference calls with all of our local, regional, state partners, as well as non-governmental organizations, utilities like ComEd and Peoples Gas, and of course the National Weather Service. This allows us to align strategies and share information and problem solve together. If we saw some results of the extreme cold that were extraordinary, we could always activate our emergency operations center. That's at the discretion of our executive director, but that would involve, in-person response and coordination in our EOC here at OEMC.
And, I have the OEMC app. I find it very helpful, and I think it's honestly, I think it's a very useful tool, especially if you're going to be out to do the tracking, that you're able to do to let your family members know where you are, those types of things. Tell me a little bit about the emergency alerts and why that would be helpful this time of year especially.
Sure. So this links up with our Notify Chicago alerting system. So where you can opt in to both emergency alerts, really no matter what the hazard is, but it could involve, anything where an evacuation or shelter in place orders might be necessary. But it also can just keep you up to date on, large scale events occurring in the city, such as Lollapalooza or the Pride Parade. It'll even notify you when, Cubs, Blackhawks, White Sox, Bears games are, to let you know when there might be some traffic disruption. So we really cover a pretty wide range of hazards and special events that we inform the public on.
Yeah. And be it that you've been with OEMC for a while, what are some of the things that you have seen in winters past that you're hoping to avoid this year?
Well, certainly we've had some heavy snowfalls in the past. The first that comes to mind is the 2011 Groundhog's Day blizzard, if you'll remember that, where we had a lot of cars stuck on Lakeshore Drive. Thankfully, it doesn't look like we'll be experiencing any of that snowfall this weekend. I know further south and across the country, it appears that will be a greater hazard. For us, it's really just about the extreme cold. So I really think it starts with personal preparedness and making sure that everybody knows that they need to limit their time outdoors. And also, this is just a good time to stock up on groceries, including those non-perishable items. It's a good time to check the batteries in your smoke detectors and your carbon monoxide detectors. And of course, just check on your friends and neighbors.
I think checking on your friends and neighbors is so important, especially your elderly friends and neighbors. And one of the things that we typically see when we do get super cold outside is people sometimes, we talk about extreme cold, but some people will take extreme measures to try to stay warm.
That's true. Officially, we can't recommend using space heaters. They are a bit of a home hazard, but I would say if you have to use one, number one, don't use an extension cord. Number two, make sure that you keep anything flammable at least 3 feet away from it. And of course, make sure there's adult supervision when kids are involved. And of course, we never, ever recommend to use your oven or stove to heat your home. Certainly the temptation is there, but that could be quite dangerous. And before I forget, I just want to mention, this is a good time of year to drip those faucets to make sure that your pipes don't freeze up overnight.
Yeah, all good tips there. One of the other things that comes to mind as I'm kind of looking at different live shots that we have, at the beginning of the week, a lot of our waterways look like waterways. And now that we're coming to the end of the week and the lower temperatures have been around and we're getting ready for even lower temperatures, and you see more icy covered areas, I think about some people who will errantly attempt to get out on that ice.
Yeah, we certainly discourage that. And of course, there's also black ice, which is not terribly visible, so that can really sneak up on you. I, like many other people, have learned that the hard way over the years. But really, if you're going outdoors, stay cautious. Try to limit your time in the car as well. If you have to make a trip in your car, might be a good idea to go a little slower than usual and just keep a extra lookout for those icy spots.
Yeah, and really I was thinking about the water, it's not, Lake Michigan isn't like frozen through and through at this point.
Oh no, we would never recommend heading out on Lake Michigan, no matter how frozen it may appear. We've certainly seen some tragic incidents in the past where people have fallen through the ice. So yeah, big no-no.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would want to get the message out about right now as we prepare for Friday and the weekend that we haven't mentioned?
We always encourage people to download that app, that OEMC app, because, in addition to signing up for alerts, there's just lots of other helpful information on there. And, even during heavy snowfalls, you can get our Department of Streets and Sanitation's plow tracker on there. So lots of great information on there for people to use.
There's a lot of great information on there indeed. Thank you so much for what you all do. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Stay warm.
We will try for sure. All right, everyone. It's about 2:15 right now. Let's take a quick break, 2 minutes, and we'll be back with a conversation about one of our community members who's helping the next generation shine. Welcome back, everyone. 2:17 right now. And boy, this spring, the CPS early college students are going to be able to enroll in a barbering program that's going to be offered at Olive Harvey College. I think this is such a wonderful opportunity for young people who are kind of on a track to maybe learn about something new or to just expand their horizons and maybe pick up a new trade, you know? I want to bring in the Senior Vice President of Olive Harvey College, Brandon Nichols, to talk a little bit more about what's being offered and why. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Definitely a pleasure. Happy to be here today.
I love what you all are doing. My oldest uncle has been a barber for 60 years. And so I see such value in this particular trade and starting at a young age. Tell us a little bit more about how this particular track came to be, this new program.
Well, really, we did an environmental scan of the area on the south side of Chicago where we wanted to identify a program that we knew would attract and reflect our neighborhood, and that being our Black and Latinx population. So it's not just
okay. I think we're having a bit of an issue with the signal there. Can you hear me okay?
But we wanted to create a program that someone could earn a certificate or possibly.
All right, let's take another quick break and let's try to fix that signal, and then we'll come back with this conversation. Give us a couple minutes here, and let's try to do some assessment of what's going on here. Really want to have the conversation, so hopefully we can fix it on the opposite side of the break. All right, 2:21 right now. Still doing a little bit more troubleshooting on this particular topic of a new program that was just designed to help aspiring barbers who are still in high school. You know, one of the conversations I was having with my producers was, you know, how we meet youth where they are, finding out what they're interested in, and then finding out how we can take what they're interested in and really turn it into a career path for them. And that's really what this is. In fact, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that employment for barbers and hairstylists will grow by about 7 to 10% between the years of 2020 to 2030, this period that we're in right now. And that's more than the average for many other occupations. So why not? When you're seeing this growth, take the time to put more people, show more people a new avenue for revenue than there have been before. These young people now can earn dual credits through CPS early college program, and then that means that they can graduate high school with college credits and up to an associate's degree, which then, of course, helps to lower their future college costs or just help them on the way here. Of course, we hear from so many people about student loans, so anything that you can do that kind of cuts back on how much people end up having to take out in terms of loans, obviously very helpful there. And in fact, as a part of what's called the Chicago Roadmap, this dual credit program, this barbering program for high school students kind of came to be here. I love the fact that they're already doing like an early college program for so many students in CPS. They said that it's creating a clear early pathway from high school to a skilled career while expanding access to other college level pathways. One of the things that we often talk about with at school administrators that come on the show, both at the high school level and the collegiate level, is just the changing norms for people. I mean, we talk about changing norms in almost every aspect of society, but especially when it comes to what people look at as necessary. Is a four-year college necessary? Is a 2-year college necessary? Is maybe a trade, learning a trade or an apprenticeship? Maybe that could help someone on the way who may not follow the path of a 4-year college, a traditional 4-year college. So opening up as many pathways as possible, really a big part of this, and love to see new things that are coming about, again, to meet young people where they are. So we've been working to see if the Senior Vice President of Olive Harvey College can join us again. Brandon, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I was just kind of gloating about how much I love the fact that you all are opening up a new pathway for young people. Tell me more about what it means to provide this for them.
Well, we identified the program by really looking at our neighborhood. So we serve the southeast side of Chicago, and we wanted to identify a program that would be able to address and serve our community, and that being our Latinx and Black population. So we wanted to identify and have a program where it will be hands-on, work-based learning along with a theoretical perspective. And this would have an opportunity for our students to not just earn a credential, but to be able to enter the workforce directly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the reasons why I brought up like my uncle being a barber for 60 years is because learning this particular trade can help you whether you go on to do another 4-year college, a 2-year college, or just having a skill that can make you some money on the side when you're doing that.
Absolutely. So we have 2 particular tracks. Our first track is for someone looking to just earn a certificate. The certificate is a total of 8 classes that will align with Illinois Department of Finance and Professional Regulation for them to sit for the barber exam. But for any student for our second track that would like to earn a degree, we have very much specific general education classes that are geared toward business and financial literacy for a student to earn a degree, and then not to just be an employee, but to be self-employed, to open up possibly their own shop.
And that is such a huge differentiation, getting kids in the mindset of not just being an employee, but the owner.
That is correct. And I think the more that we're able to help build financial literacy, matching that to theory and to workforce, this is a way that we could attract our Black and Latinx students to think more broadly beyond just going to college and getting a degree, but how I can make an impact on myself and my family in order to create and generate revenue to give back to the community.
Mm-hmm. And it helps them to see that maybe something that they're interested in actually has, it can have all of those different implications, that you can affect people in so many different ways. You think it's maybe something you just like doing on the side, but there's so much more that you can do with it if you're shown how you can do those things.
Right. So part of the program, they have to have their lab hours, which would include hair cutting and other grooming services. So by being able to provide these haircuts to folks of the community, this allows them to kind of really understand and be a part of this more experiential learning of being able to serve customers while still being in the program. And this is a way for them to really kind of understand what the workforce truly looks like. And once they complete their clock hours, this is now an opportunity to say that I could use this as my side hustle, or my side hustle may become my primary hustle, depending on what particular path that they have in their future. One more add-on, at Olive Harvey College, we have our entrepreneurship hub. And through our entrepreneurship hub, if students would like to learn more of how to become an entrepreneur, we provide coursework for them to work with our subject matter faculty to groom them and identify what particular skills are needed to run a business, not just to be a barber.
So important, to learn the value of your trade, but then also to put a dollar on it, to know that what the skill, the brain power you have, the skill that you're learning, that you can put a monetary value on that.
Absolutely. And in the Cook County area, we were able to conduct an analysis on just labor market data when we created the program. So through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics for a barber, it is approximately $20 to $25 an hour someone will make. But in Cook County, we saw there was an increase in which there's more demand for barber services in Cook County. For Cook County, the labor market data showed that students are potentially able to make $33 to $45 an hour based on, or at least a annual income of $45,000 to $55,000 a year being a barber. So it shows that in Cook County, there is an increased interest, demand, and need for more barber and barber stylists in our areas.
Now, from a community perspective, one, where is the lab? And two, can people in the community come and get their hair cut from these young men and women who are learning the trade?
Yes. So this will be similar to any barber college, where it will be open to the community on select days. Once the program has launched, which actually today was the first day of our launching of the grand opening, students will be able to serve as barbers while getting their providing services to students of the people of the community. So they're able to serve the community. We have not identified a dollar amount, but for anyone that is interested in receiving a haircut, once the students reach that stage of the program, then they're able to then get their clock hours by being able to cut heads for anyone that walks in our building. We're located, the Barber College is located on the first floor of our main building. So it's really is in alignment with a more of a community school model. On our campus, we have a middle college, which is alternative high school to serve students between the age of 16 to 21. We have a child care center that serves students between the age of 2 to 5, in addition to our credit and non-credit offerings. So this is another example of how we're wanting to meet the needs of the community by providing a public good to provide haircuts and grooming services. But while doing that, this will be a work-based learning opportunity for our students that are in the barbering program.
And we talked about the barbering program. Are hairstylists going through this as well? Or tell me about some of the other things that are provided.
Right now, everything would just be exclusive to barbering. We're targeting right now for our pilot for our youth. So students that are currently in high school, they're able to learn all the theoretical perspectives about the history of barbering, hair styling techniques, and the use of the razor.
Important things to learn. I'm so happy for all of the young people who will come through the program. Thanks so much for taking the time to share with us a little bit more about it. And congratulations for the new moment in time for Olive Harvey College.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate sharing the space with you today. And for anyone listening, please be on the lookout for more advertisement about our barber college that we have here at Olive Harvey College on the far south side of Chicago.
And before I let you go, if there is someone who's listening who's interested in it, what do they need to do to be a part of it?
I would say they would just contact our either by way of our website, www.ccc.edu, or just call 773 College. And that's not just for Olive Harvey College, but for all of City Colleges. Anyone that has any questions, you could just simply call 773 College.
Okay. Again, congratulations on the new chapter.
Thank you so much, and everyone have a great day.
All right, you take care. Have a great day as well. Awesome program that they have just started here. And again, they're going to help so many young people to be able to just see a new path. And that's important, that they have as many paths to follow as need be to find what works for them to be successful in the future. It's 2:33 right now. Let's take a quick break, 2 minutes, and then we're going to be talking about a new measure just passed by City Council, just approved here, for an office to housing conversion that's going to happen soon. Just about 2:36, everyone. And as we look around the city of Chicago, so many buildings that once held retail space or commercial space, everyone has to kind of re-envision. You know, if they're empty now, like what can be done with them? How do we bring them back to life? And for one particular development group, they just had a groundbreaking. I mean, the Chicago City Council just approved a $57 million allocation from the LaSalle Central TIF to this particular development group for a $132.6 million office to housing conversion. I want to bring in Lee Golub of Golub and Co. to talk a little bit more about this new venture that you all are on and the funding that you all are getting to make it happen. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate being with you.
And did I pronounce it correctly? Is it Golub?
It's Golub. Golub and Company, Lee Golub.
Okay, Golub.
Enough.
Wanted to get it right. So tell me about one.
Well, first I was going to say about the barber before.
Sure.
When I get a haircut, my daughter says, "Was it take you 5 seconds?" So,
if it takes you an hour, I'd be a little concerned. I'd be a little concerned,
Yes.
Lee. Something's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, so 30 North LaSalle is one of 5 projects that the city of Chicago approved in what they called back in the Mayor Lightfoot administration, LaSalle Street Reimagined. It was really what to do about obsolete and vacant office space on the LaSalle Street corridor, mostly in the landmark or historic buildings that many tenants had vacated. 208 South LaSalle, 135 South LaSalle, 115 South LaSalle. We're part of that 105 West Adams, and we are at 30 North LaSalle excited to be taking basically the entire low rise of the office building. It's a 1 million square foot office building located right across the street from City Hall at Washington and LaSalle. And the program, I think a couple years ago, they put it out to the development community that there was lots of money in the LaSalle Street TIF. It's been around for almost 20 plus years every year where real estate taxes get funded into the TIF. And there was a surplus. You read about this or hear about this in the budget meetings and the council trying to figure out what to do with LaSalle, with TIF surpluses. But the Department of Housing, Department of Planning, and the mayor's office came up with a really interesting concept and a progressive concept to entice developers to utilize TIF dollars along with regular debt and equity that we put into these deals and get basically granted TIF money if you can take office space and convert it to residential housing or hotels space. Ours will be all residential, and have a 30% affordable component in the building at a 60% of AMI. Now, that's a little bit more than if we're doing a new development in the city of Chicago, we're required to provide 20% affordable on site with a 60% AMI, which is the average median income. So this was a really interesting program that the city came up with and went out to the development community within a certain district where the LaSalle Street TIF is to see if anybody would propose to do this. And we were one of the developers that we had a building that we're working with an owner who had just foreclosed on a different borrower, and we're trying to figure out what to do with the building. So we took this as an opportunity to basically see if this building would work from a physical standpoint and a financial standpoint, and with the public-private partnership with the TIF and private money going into the project, it makes it work. And that's what other developers are doing as well with this LaSalle Street money, the TIF grants.
Tell me about your time frame from the allocation of the money to when you could actually have these 349 spots open, housing units open.
So it's a long process. We've been working on this since, like I said, in Mayor Lightfoot's administration. It took a little bit for the Mayor Johnson's administration to take these projects and move them forward. So we are probably the 5th out of 5 to start. We just got approved at City Council yesterday, as you know, for our TIF, and we hope to, quote unquote, break ground sometime in the second quarter of this year. So relatively soon. So we haven't broken ground yet, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How many more years do you think it would be?
So when we start construction, this is probably an 18-month build. It's a little shorter time frame than if we were doing a ground-up development because the building's already there. So we're taking basically the entire low rise of the building, which was mostly vacant at the time because the city of Chicago had leased that space years ago and moved out to another building across the street. So the space was just sitting there. But it's probably in 18 to 19 months before, once we start, that we can deliver the units. So relatively short time frame for development.
Yeah. What concerns do you have as you look around downtown and you get ready to add something to this space? What concerns do you have?
Well, I mean, the concerns that we've had is we need to revitalize the loop. Just like we needed to, and we still need to revitalize Michigan Avenue. We've been a developer through the 66-year-old company, family business. My dad started it, and we've developed from Michigan Avenue, Streeterville, Gold Coast, River North, South Loop, and the loop really needed a revitalization. And the LaSalle Street TIF program offers that, where thousands of units, but more importantly, thousands of affordable units, but more importantly, thousands of units and hotel keys will be added to an inventory that was just sitting there with vacant office space that might never have gotten leased. So it's really important in our project, I think, is a catalyst, because we're the furthest north of these projects. And as you go into LaSalle Street further south, you have a situation where the buildings are more historic and they're more they're older, and there's a lot more retail that those projects will be able to build. Our building really doesn't have a lot of retail space. So when you start talking about housing in the loop, you start thinking about retail, where you're going to go shopping, where you're going to get your goods and services from. So it's important that all these projects get going, which they all are now. We'll be the last one, because having that mass of units and mass of people coming to the loop, these units the loop rents are less than most everywhere else in the city. And if anyone is in the real estate business, has been reading about Chicago, the rental market is very, 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 we've had very, very few new construction buildings in the last couple of years. So rents are just going sky high. So being able to provide affordable rents is really important for the workers that are in the loop. That's probably who most of these tenants will be, the residents will be. Many years ago, we worked on Block 37, another project that was really, really important for the city to get going. It's been about 4 or 5 years working on that project. We ended up building an office building where CBS is located, and Morningstar. But we also built a 700-unit apartment building, and that was the biggest building in the loop. It was very, very successful. We own a couple other buildings in the loop that were adaptive reuses from other developers. So, we're pretty excited about it. And the downside is, what every development is what's the market like? But the market in Chicago is strong. So I'm not as concerned about that as we might be in some other projects around the country.
What do you say to people who argue how TIF funds are used?
It's a very interesting discussion, and it's really used for infrastructure, and again, some of it is like in blighted areas, but the infrastructure discussion, which could be a lot of different things. I look at this similar to when we first went to Warsaw, Poland, when the wall came down. Believe it or not, we built office buildings in Warsaw, and there was a huge need for office space. And there was no bank or source to finance what was needed, which was basically new infrastructure. The World Bank provided infrastructure to all these developing countries, but there wasn't anything for real estate because it wasn't defined as infrastructure. We convinced the World Bank and one of its branches that building Class A office space was indeed infrastructure. So use those funds to create office space where the residents, the office workers can be, versus being in hotels and dachas. This is kind of the same theory. The infrastructure is to provide housing for people that need it and be in the loop and to rejuvenate the loop. So it's instead of, there's money that goes for landscape, or there's money that goes for roads and sewers and services and that nature. But I think it's a positive. I'm going to leave it at that because you can talk about TIFs and real estate and where it should go all day long, and we'll be here for 2 hours.
It's a pretty
hours.
loaded question. I know.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you another one. I got to let you know.
Okay. I can handle it.
We just went through this period of people really balking at their property tax bills, and a lot of that discussion revolved around empty buildings downtown and the tax revenue not being there and the burden getting pushed out into the neighborhoods. Where do you see what you're doing being a part of the solution?
Well, again, that is a very loaded question. We have to equalize the way it works. The taxes have to be equalized. We have to have them come from somewhere. And for many, many, many years, the Loop and the office buildings and the hotels and the apartment buildings, the tax base, it was very strong. And so those taxes were extremely high. And it allowed for the equalization of the neighborhoods in some of these places that recently have gotten hit hard, where they didn't have that issue. It was pretty obvious to anybody in the real estate community that post-COVID, office buildings were in big trouble. And the taxes that were still being paid even during 2021, 22, 23, 24, where these buildings were basically vacant or on their way to being vacant, still had huge tax bills. And this last go-around is where the assessor's office actually took that into consideration and saw that the values of these office buildings, I mean, a building that might have been worth $1 was being sold for 10 cents or even less. And that's not just one building. It's kind of across the nation, and Chicago is part of that. So it had to happen, and it's got to come from somewhere. Is it too extreme? I mean, we can talk about, the Cook County assessor being extreme when he first wanted to, change the whole tax, the way taxes are assessed in Cook County when he first came into office. It was very extreme, and the office building owners were the ones complaining and screaming. The ball's been flipped to the other side, or the story's been flipped to the other side, where a lot of homeowners and small shops and businesses are, to get anywhere from a 30 to a 200% increase in taxes. It's not sustainable. So we have to figure out how to redo the system in Cook County. And it'll be interesting. There's an election coming up this year that will probably be the first time in a couple years where it's going to be a very competitive election here in the primary, with Cook County Assessor Kagi versus Pat Hines. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Very interesting indeed. Lee Golub, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing as this project comes to fruition.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be there with you, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Take care.
You too. All right, it's about
Bye-bye.
2:50, everyone. Let's take a quick 2-minute break here, and then we're going to talk about a tough conversation. There's a situation that took place in Joliet this week that was very eye-opening for a lot of people, and now there's a lawsuit as a result of it. So on the opposite side of this break, we'll have that conversation. All right, everyone, we're back at 2:52. I told you that we were going to be having a conversation about what was happening in Joliet. We will get to that in our 3 o'clock hour now because Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls is here, and we've got to soak up all the time we can with her when we can get it before the 4 o'clock show. So tell us about where we're going with these temperatures outside.
We have so many things to keep track of here in the forecast the next couple of days. I was just mentioning to Anita in the commercial break, I have so many numbers living in my head here. So tonight's going to be the worst of it. Tonight through midday tomorrow, we have that extreme cold warning across all of northeastern Illinois. For those of you in northwest Indiana, we have that cold weather advisory. Whether you're in the advisory or the warning, impacts are just about the same. It's going to be dangerously cold. We have actual air temperatures tonight that are going to be dropping down pretty close to 10 degrees below zero for most of the region. And it's also going to be very gusty, which means wind chill temperatures tonight, especially after about 2-3 o'clock in the morning through the first half of the day tomorrow. We are looking at wind chills as low as 30 to 40 degrees below zero. And you're probably thinking, okay, I haven't heard that 40 below quite yet. It looks like it could be, a little more extreme than what we were even thinking a few days ago. So yes, dangerously cold. And I do want to really stress that whenever you have wind chill temperatures that are as low as about 30 degrees below zero, that's when we're talking about frostbite being possible on exposed skin. So if you're covered up, you're fine. Obviously, you're going to feel cold, you're going to get cold, but as far as frostbite is concerned, as long as your skin is covered, you should do okay. But if you have even your cheeks out, your nose out when you're out walking around, 10 minutes or less, Anita, and that's 10 minutes isn't a very long time.
Not at all.
A lot of people walk longer than that to get to school, to get to work.
Which is why so many schools are closed tomorrow.
That's right,
Yeah.
yes. So we have, again, dangerously cold conditions tomorrow through at least the middle of the day. But then even after that extreme cold warning expires at noon, it's being replaced with that cold weather advisory. So just think of it this way. There are cold weather headlines that are going into effect tonight. They will last all the way until at least 9 a.m. on Saturday for dangerously cold conditions.
Yeah.
So wind chill temperatures, once we're in that advisory, still going to be as low as 20 to 25 below. So bitter cold, and it's just brutal to be outside the next couple of days. The tips that we're telling everybody, obviously, if you're a homeowner, for those of you that are in apartment buildings, even with cold that's this extreme, you really want to drip those faucets, because otherwise you could be dealing with a big old mess with burst pipes. So make sure you're watching out for that. And then the additional thing that's coming our way for the weekend now is snow. So everyone,
What a gift,
Mother Nature, she's
in a giving mood.
She really is. So over the weekend, something that we've been watching closely, and not even really for our local forecast here, but there's what could end up being a historic storm that's impacting nearly 40 states.
Yeah.
A winter storm, but now it's creeped northward enough that we are going to be feeling some impacts. Now, is it a major storm for us? Not necessarily. A couple things that we're going to have to watch for Saturday into Sunday is going to be whether or not we're able to get some of that lake enhancement. If we are, then we're going to see higher totals closer to the lakefront in Northeast Illinois. Of course, that includes the city of Chicago. For those of you in Northwest Indiana as well, we could be seeing some lake enhancement, but that's still a question mark. So that's not a for sure thing that we're going to see just yet. What is for sure that we're going to see some snow. So we're likely going to have light to moderate snow beginning on Saturday, lasting all the way through Sunday. So this is a long duration event, but just because I'm saying it's a long duration event, it doesn't mean we're getting a foot of snow. In fact, many locations are only going to see a few inches of snow, especially south and east of I-55. I think that's going to be the target area that sees the most. And this is going to be a very light, fluffy snow. Oftentimes we always get questions, is this going to be heart attack snow? Because so many of us have to shovel. This is not going to be that. This is going to be the most beautiful, powdery, soft snow
that you want to look at from the inside.
It should be the kind, though, that you could literally pick up and go and blow it, because the snow liquid ratio on a typical snowstorm usually 10 inches of snow per 1 inch of water. This could be 20 inches of snow for 1 inch of water. So very, very airy, very light. Get the snow blowers out, or not even the snow blowers. What am I thinking of? The leaf blower to blow it off of your driveways. That's what I would do in this scenario. Yes.
So over the next 72 hours, essentially.
Yeah.
We're really going to feel the impacts of winter in our area. We've been spoiled with like mild-ish winters, where we get like one day here, maybe a week. We are really in the grips of winter right now.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is if you have the option to stay indoors, just do it. You know, if you can work from home, do it. Make yourself comfortable, you know. If you're going to be traveling, if you're going to be in your cars, just make sure that even if you're thinking, okay, I'm just running in, running out, have the coats, the gloves, the hats with you. You never know when you're going to, unfortunately, get in a car accident or anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
So just make sure if you are, for some reason, stuck out in the cold, you're prepared.
Yeah. Were you shocked to see things like Metra reducing their schedule for the weekend?
So we've seen things like that before, and I know whenever we're getting to the range of temperatures that we're getting into, it does affect the rails, right? So it's not surprising, but you know, it's an inconvenience for a lot of folks, and unfortunately, it's just something that we're going to have to deal with and work around. Just know that it's temporary. We can do it.
We can do it, everybody. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And of course, I always like to remind, it's so...
it is beautiful
It's
outside.
beautiful outside, and then people think like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at this type of picture.
Well, and even
minus
out
the
there,
words on your screen.
I know, the deep freeze. And it, you know, it's already very cold out. We actually have wind chill temperatures currently that are sitting in the single digits to just barely in the double digits. And this is just the beginning. It's very gusty out there right now. It's going to stay that way. But again, the worst of it, it does appear like it's going to be tonight through tomorrow. Your daytime high temperatures on Friday, there's going to be spots that struggle to even hit 0. So it's going to be very cold. But then we will start to feel some improvements. Now, next week, we're going to have temperatures climbing into the 20s, everybody. And I think after the stretch of extreme cold that we're about to have, it's not going to feel so bad. You know, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going to be right around 20. There's some models that are still trying to bring us up close to 30 on a couple of those days. So it'll be something to watch. But regardless, it's temporary. We can do it. Just take care of yourselves. Check on elderly. Check on your neighbors. You know, make sure if they need to run out and grab something, if you're more able to be able to do that, you know, help your friends out.
Absolutely. And make sure that you are staying tuned to the forecast on the air, online, everybody. And in fact, on our website, we have a full listing of all the school closures, the e-learning days for some kids, which then turn into working days for a lot of parents as well. You know, plan ahead right now. We're just giving you the information so that you can plan right now for what is to come. Thank you so much, Emily.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. It's 3 o'clock, everyone. Give us a quick 2 minutes, and we'll be back to set you up for this final hour here on Chicago Live. right, everyone, welcome back to Chicago Live. It's our final hour here, and there's plenty to get to even in this last hour. Around 3:45, we're going to have a conversation about a new prep tool that may help some kids to do better on their SATs, and it's being provided by none other than Google Gemini, in fact. So we're going to bring in a manager from Gemini app at Google to talk a little bit more about that. You know, we were speaking about, e-learning days tomorrow for a lot of kids, or a day off from school altogether. Maybe a day when maybe they can do a little bit more SAT prep, and this could help out. Let's also talk about a couple of other things that came up when we were speaking with Emily just a few moments ago about those days where people are going to be inside a little bit more. AT&T came out with a really interesting headline here about keeping your phone warm. Have you ever thought about that? I mean, we think about keeping our pets warm, keeping us as people warm, but keeping your phone warm? Yes, it's a thing. It's kind of necessary if you're going to be on the go. Maybe you're all bundled up, but this could help you out as well. And then another aspect to the cold temperatures outside, another headline that kind of gets our attention: exploding trees. Emily mentioned it a couple of days ago, and we're going to expound upon it with Morton Arboretum, what that concept is, where we typically see it, what it actually means. Plus, we'll be talking with Fox Weather about that bigger system that Emily mentioned that's going to affect so many other states, many states that are far less equipped to handle it than the state of Illinois. But first, I want to start off with a conversation I told you about a short while ago. Very serious and disturbing situation, quite frankly, that took place in Joliet. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Victor Henderson with the Cochran firm to tell me a little bit more about their latest lawsuit here, dealing with a male Joliet police officer who they believe unlawfully searched a 12-year-old girl during a traffic stop. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me when this happened and what exactly took place.
Well, it happened in February of 2025, and there were two sisters, a 20-year-old and a 12-year-old who had left their mom's house and were going to visit their grandmother, which was about 5 minutes away. And the Joliet police stopped the two young ladies as they were on their way to visit their grandmother, saying that the car lights were off or some minor traffic infraction. But then what happened next was astounding. They had the two young ladies get out of the car, and again, this is in Joliet, and they did not search the driver, but they searched the 12-year-old, and so you had a male officer, a grown man, a man with a gun, who actually searched and frisked and put his hands on a 12-year-old girl, including putting his hands in or near her private area. So of course the 12-year-old was shocked and dismayed and traumatized. The mom showed up on the scene, naturally angry and not understanding what was going on, and so we're off from there.
Oh my goodness. Tell me about some of what the family described to you in coming to you, just what they have been through mentally, processing all of this.
Well, you have to remember, I guess what the family is saying is happening on different levels. The mother has expressed anger, hurt, disappointment, confusion. And I think at the end of the day, probably the feeling that seems to come through the most is that she feels like a failure, because when you're a parent, first and foremost, you're supposed to try to, protect your children. And you don't think that when you're going to send your children to go visit their grandmother, that anything is going to happen to them, especially by the police. And so the mom is just devastated and feels like she has failed her daughter. Now, in terms of the 12-year-old, it's even more significant, because remember, when we were children, if you're going to school, if you have to go to the principal's office or you got a note home from school, it just seemed like the end of the world. So to be a 12-year-old girl being searched by a man in the dead of winter, being told to get out of the car, and then to have a man pat you down. And again, there were no weapons, there were no drugs, there was no report, of a robbery or a felony committed, nothing like that. This is just an everyday, occurrence where you're going to visit your grandmother, your grandmom, and the 12-year-old has been traumatized. She's been in therapy. She started acting out. Whereas she was a normal 12-year-old and slept in her own bed, she wanted to be in her mother's bed. She started having problems in school, going to therapy, being angry, being confused, because again, remember, a 12-year-old can't process information the same way that an adult can.
Yeah.
And so it's been very traumatic for the 12-year-old, for her sister who was driving, for the mother, for the grandmother. It's a close-knit family, and they are just overwhelmed. We tried to sit down with the city of Joliet to get some redress, to see if the city would at least acknowledge what had happened, and try to make the young lady or the 12-year-old and the family whole on some level. And they were dismissive. Said they weren't interested. I was shocked by that, but that's the day and age that we live in.
Is there any type of body-worn camera or anything to substantiate their claims?
Yes. It was all caught on body-worn camera. That's how we know. And ironically enough, there was a sergeant who showed up on the scene after the officer searched the 12-year-old, and he too was astounded. He's like, "Wait a minute, you searched a 12-year-old?" But again, you don't have to take our word for it. It's all out there. It's in, it should be in the media, and so yes, there's body-worn camera. There's footage from the car itself. Because if you didn't have that, then people would say, "Oh, that didn't happen. We don't believe that." But similar to George Floyd or the lady who was recently killed in Minnesota. It's all on camera. It's all there for everybody to see. So you don't have to take the word, of lawyers, and you don't have to take the word of families. You can, look at it online for yourself.
So you're able to hear the sergeant essentially acknowledge something went wrong, but you have not received any type of reaction or acknowledgement from the actual police department, the Joliet Police Department?
So we did, what you're supposed to do in this situation, reach out to the highest ranking officials in the city of Joliet. And I do believe that because, some of these officials are older as opposed to, the age of children, and because they're men, as opposed to young girls, and because they're in a position of authority, versus, someone who does not have control, over their person and their environment. They, for all practical purposes, they were like, "Oh, this is not a big deal." And we see it completely otherwise. I mean, we don't want to be in a society where children are stopped and children are frisked. Again, if there had been a report that there were two young ladies who were fleeing a bank, and in an 80 or 90 mile or 100-mile-an-hour chase, then under those circumstances, sure, a search might be warranted. But this is just a situation where two kids are going to visit their grandmother. And, the city of Joliet acted like they could be so bothered. I was stunned by that, but then simultaneously that municipality has also been under federal monitoring because they have been deficient in other ways in terms of how they police in that particular department. So the fact that they, gave short shrift to what happened is disappointing, but I can't necessarily say it's surprising.
In doing your research, as you were mentioning there, some of the other inquiries into this particular department, what is the policy? What should have been done? I mean, it sounds like there's an aspect of this where maybe some of this could have been avoided if a female officer had been there. But then again, there's another aspect that says if these young women were not being chased or there was no crime that had been committed before they were stopped, should a frisk have happened at all?
One, they didn't frisk the daughter who was driving, which we thought That's typically who, if the older child. Two, because there was no emergency. Your point is well taken that it could have been, if necessary, a female officer. Three, the police are entitled to legally and lawfully protect themselves, and we want that. The police are important. We need them to protect themselves, and we need them to protect society. And so they have a difficult job to do, a challenging job to do, but simultaneously they're supposed to just use, common sense. And as my father taught me, common sense isn't so common sometimes. And in this particular instance, again, they didn't pull up and they didn't smell marijuana. They didn't see any drugs in the car. There was no gun, so they didn't see a gun. And why the officer in this instance made the decision to, frisk, pat down, touch a 12-year-old and a girl at that. We do see in various communities how young men, especially black and brown men, sometimes are searched. And, if you commit a crime or people think you've committed a crime, then you should be searched, because the officers need to protect themselves. They deserve to go home to their families at the end of a difficult shift. And we accept that and understand that and believe in that. But simultaneously, when they do wrong and when there's no indicia or no indication that a youngster, a 12-year-old, has done wrong. We wouldn't see this in Winnetka. We wouldn't see it in Lake Forest. We wouldn't see it in Glencoe. And, we shouldn't see it in Joliet. So whether you're rich or poor, black or white or Latino or Asian American, employed or unemployed, it shouldn't matter. Everybody should be treated fairly, respectfully, and legally. And that did not happen in this case.
So what are you seeking in this lawsuit?
I think two things. One, accountability. It appears as if, my impression was that the city of Joliet wanted to give it short shrift because the family was willing to sit down with them and, try to work things out. The mother had no interest in being public. They're just a regular family like anybody else, so there was no desire for them to be, giving interviews on the media. But when the city of Joliet, acted as if they could be so bothered, the family felt, and I agreed, that they want to make them accountable, and then two, the young lady has been damaged, and she's in therapy, and she's self-conscious and non-trusting now, and having difficulty with male teachers, and so I think the second thing is that the young lady needs to be made whole. Who knows how long this traumatic experience will stick with her. But she's been in therapy. She is trying to get better, and simultaneously, when the police do right, we should support them, and when they don't get it right, then just like everybody else, they need to be held accountable. So that, I think those are the two main things that we're looking for. And
you did kind of speak to my final question as to how long it could take.
We filed a lawsuit in the Northern District of Illinois, with federal court, because of constitutional rights have been violated. It is a pretty efficient courthouse, and on average, I would think that this might take 18 to 24 months to be resolved. If we have to go all the way, through trial, of course, the judge will be the one to decide whether the case gets to a jury or not. But, with matters of justice like this, Martin Luther King said, and just, his MLK Day was just a few days ago, that the arc of justice is long. And so it's really not about the time, how long it takes. And, it's not just about this young 12-year-old and her family. Her mom said earlier today that, she is interested in this not just for her daughter, but for all the, little kids out there, 6, 8, 10, 12, who've done nothing wrong and shouldn't have their lives turned upside down. And, there are times when you have to stand up, and, this is an MLK week. And, it's about trying to do the right thing at the right time in the right way. And so, time is really not a major factor. It's just the fact that, you have to stand up and when things aren't right, you have to stand up and talk about it. That's one of the beautiful things about the United States and democracy. We have the right to speak. And so this family is exercising their right to call attention to something that has been devastating and traumatic.
Well, I'm glad that they are speaking about it, and I'm grateful that you took the time today to come on our show and tell us more about this case. Please keep us updated. I really am interested in finding out what the resolution is.
And thanks for having us, because we wouldn't be able to tell the story without you. So you guys are the best.
All right. You take care.
Okay, bye now.
It's 3:18, everyone. Give us 2 minutes, and then we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much for staying here with us on Chicago Live. I promised at the beginning of our show today that we were going to talk about the cold temperatures from many different angles, and this one, this falls into that category of like, say what? Exploding trees. We definitely had to put in a call to the Morton Arboretum about this. A plant knowledge specialist, Sharon Yisley, is joining me now. Thank you for your time. Think you're on mute right now, Sharon.
Okay, I think that's better now.
I've got you now. I definitely want to be able to hear what you have to say about this. A few days ago, when we were preparing for the colder temperatures, our chief meteorologist, Emily Walls, said something about exploding trees that stuck with us, and we're like, huh? Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, that is a thing that happens. I don't know that I would have used the term exploding trees, but I can understand why people are thinking that, because in certain situations when we have really drastically cold weather, trees can break apart in that kind of weather. And anytime wood is breaking apart, it makes a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just like in a summer thunderstorm, a branch is ripped out by a strong wind, you're going to have a lot of noise as that wood is torn apart.
Yeah. And, she did explain that, like, hey, the tree's not actually exploding. But tell me some of the things that contribute to the loud cracks that we might hear.
Well, it is about the actual wood splitting. We see when we have really unusually cold weather, like coming up in the next couple of days, the moisture that is still in the plant cells is going to freeze. There's going to be pressure. What we mostly see in this area really are frost cracks where the bark will get a long vertical split in it. But in really extreme weather, I know some of the more northern states than us are having even more extreme weather. Then that sometimes the pressure builds up because that water, the sap that's in the cell, freezing is under a lot of pressure, and so the tree, branches may actually split away from the trunk, or a tree trunk may split. So then we start to see more damage. And because again, just like I said, like that thunderstorm in summer that tears a branch off of a tree, or just makes a trunk split, when that wood comes apart, you get a very loud sound.
Now, what are they doing? I mean, in terms of like the tree splits or cracks, but what's the life cycle?
I'm happy to say, luckily, this isn't a common occurrence. I mean, it can happen, but I don't want people to think that we're just going to have a lot of trees come down. I've seen situations where we've had drastic temperature drops, maybe 50-degree drops in a day, and it wasn't like every tree in the neighborhood was splitting open. So it's going to be selective. I don't think I want people to be worried about this excessively. It can happen. And the frost cracking that we see here, often the tree just heals. It'll seal the edge. You'll have, for the rest of the tree's life, you'll see a long vertical split, but the tree will seal it around the edge, and the tree goes on just fine. In more serious cases where maybe a branch breaks off or a trunk splits, we may have to have an arborist come in and evaluate, can we take branches off? Can we repair it? Maybe part of the tree can be salvaged. So like I said, it's a thing that does happen. It's real. It's just not something that happens all the time, luckily. And I wouldn't expect a major amount of trees to have this problem.
And we're, of course, talking about snow for the weekend, but just a couple of weeks ago we had rain. Does that warm rain make it worse when we get to these extreme cold temperatures?
I think the worst situation is when we go from an unusually warm spell rapidly to a really cold spell. What we're having now is that, we had a little warmth last week or the week before, but basically we've kind of been going from cold to colder. I'm thinking of a time, maybe 20 years ago, I was in St. Louis and we had an unusually warm autumn, and suddenly the temperature dropped 50 degrees in one day. And then we didn't actually see trees exploding or breaking open like this, but we saw a lot of damage to trees that had not prepared for winter. And I think this year, we've had enough winter preparation, we've had enough cold temperatures that will lessen the severity of what could go on this weekend.
That's fair, yeah. Are there certain types of trees that are more affected than others?
Sometimes trees that have thinner bark may be more prone to the frost cracking that's common here. I know I've seen some research in the past of trees that might have in their interior some damage that occurred at a time in the past and isn't known. It's inside the tree, and that could be a weak spot. And so we can't always tell which trees might be affected. I would think any tree that maybe already had some weak spots, some cracking that was evident on the tree, that might be a tree that would be a little bit more prone. I mean, it's like anything. When you have any organism that's not as strong and healthy as it can be, it's probably going to be the one that potentially could be facing danger.
But like maple versus, fir or something, is there a difference in how they handle extreme cold?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are differences in every species, but sometimes it's not about the species, it's about the individual. Because you could have 10 maple trees, one is less healthy than the other, and it might be the one that is damaged more easily. So it's like nature is never simple. There's always too many factors to consider. So the species of the tree, the health of the tree, the care it's received if it's a residential tree, and maybe just the location of the tree. It's amazing how sometimes temperatures and wind can vary from one spot to another. So sometimes it's hard. I mean, I don't know that anyone could really predict what tree might actually end up being damaged.
And what do you all do at the Arboretum this time of year in terms of protecting the plants and the vegetation that you all have there?
Well, as trees went into dormancy, we were still watering. In autumn, the soil was still warm, so we were trying to water trees on a regular basis in our core area where there's a lot more cultivated gardens. We made sure that there was water because water is important to every plant, and it helps a plant to be healthier and stronger, to be watered well. But other than that, most of our trees are fully hardy here. If we have trees that may have hardiness issues, sometimes we're pushing the envelope on what we have here. We may make sure that we've got a good layer of mulch down on those trees because mulch helps to insulate the soil and helps to insulate, the root system of a tree and make it more protected. But, so many of the trees in our area are fully hardy here that we don't really have to do a lot of extra things to them.
You mentioned mulch helping out in some circumstances. Now listen, some people, some neighborhoods put sweaters on their trees. Is that actually helpful?
It sounds fun, but I don't know that it's going to do a lot for the tree. I think the root system we always have to think about because soil temperatures can fluctuate so much when we're having this erratic weather we've been having. So soil temperatures can go up and down, and so roots, we want to be protective of them, and that's what mulch does. It's an insulator. It kind of helps moderate those soil temperatures and minimize some of those fluctuations. The above ground part of the tree, if it's a tree that's a hardy species here, they can make it through these hard winters when we have them. I know when we had polar vortices a few years ago and everybody was worried about it, any tree that was fully in dormancy actually made it through pretty well, even with some of those extreme temperatures we had.
So fashionable trees is a no. I gotcha.
Well, very nice looking, but probably not helping the tree in any way, really.
Sharon, great speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
All right, take care. Goodness, Siri's over here thanking her too. 3:30, let's take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. 3:32 right now. So what did we learn in the last segment? Maybe putting sweaters on a tree, cute, but not really effective to keep them well during the winter months. But when it comes to your phone, well, they may need a little bundling up. Yes, your phone. So Abby Noe with AT&T is joining me now to talk a little bit more about these friendly tips for the phone lovers around here. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey there. Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can hear you fine. Yes. So, I mean, extreme temperatures definitely have an effect on pretty much everything.
Yes, definitely. So you wouldn't believe it, but honestly, normally you'll get this notification when you're in the hot weather. You'll get a notification on your phone that says, hey, temperature might be a little high. Well, you're going to get it when it's cold too. So one thing you don't want to do is leave your phone where it's going to be super cold. You want to make sure to put your phone in your pocket of any sort, your coat pocket, your back pocket of your jeans, but do not leave your devices in your car because it's really, really bad for them.
Okay, when we say really, really bad, I immediately think of just how quickly your battery drains. What are some other things?
Yeah, so your battery will drain, and then actually the phone inside gets some sort of condensation error where the phone can't handle all the pressure from the cold weather. And then especially if you're going inside to somewhere that's heated, it'll just have a pressure change within the screen of your phone that can affect the battery life itself as well. So not only just affecting your charging port and the screen condensation, but it can affect the battery life by just the severe weather change that you're going to experience going from the really cold to really warm weather.
I'm seeing here that it's easier to crack your screen.
Yes, it's very easy to crack your screen. So another thing, you want to make sure that you have the right case, which AT&T can help you out right now. We have some great deals online, up to 65% off some accessories. But if you're not really sure what you're looking for, or you want to target something like cold weather, you can always go to one of our AT&T stores and they'll help you out with one of our experts. So I know you can crack your screen. I would definitely recommend a screen protector. I have one on my own device. I also have a case and a MagSafe charger as well. So I think accessories will really help you out there, no matter where you get them. I just think it's really important to have, especially in super, really freezing cold weather.
How quickly do some of the things, especially the internal components that you talked about there, how quickly do those things go into effect in the extreme cold?
Well, if you're just walking outside, you want to make sure that your phone's in your pocket, like I said, or in a purse. You just want to make sure it's not exposed to the cold weather. But if you're leaving your phone in your vehicle on accident, or hopefully not on purpose, then it can really get damaged. I would say probably 15 minutes is where you're going to start noticing that it's going to take longer to turn on. So if you do that, no need to fret. Just make sure that you take your time turning your device back on, because as I said, you will get that temperature check and your phone will take a second to get the computer back up and running, and it'll need a second to warm up, just like humans. So it's a little bit ironic, but it will, it won't take more than, 5 minutes, especially in negative 15 degree weather.
And we may have negative 35 up here. So let me ask you this. You mentioned warming up. For a human, obviously, there's maybe some exercises or some stretches you can do to warm up. What do you do to warm up your phone?
So my first tip would just be leave the case on. I feel like a lot of people want to take the case off and maybe like rub the device in between their hands. I would just say leave the case on, because it's actually keeping, some of that warmth inside from the device. It sounds just like a coat for your phone. It'll keep some of the warmth inside as well. So your first instinct might be to take that off. You just want to leave it on and then set it on a flat surface so that it can heat up itself. I wouldn't, like I said, don't try to power it on too quickly. You don't want to jumpstart the battery or anything like that. Just, wait until you see that screen that makes it gradually come on, and then let it do its thing. I wouldn't sit there clicking the power button. You don't want to rush anything that the computer internal system is doing in your device, because it can just, it can mess some things up for you.
So I'm going to ask you this, and I'm telling you, before I even get to it, I was in the Apple store just a few weeks ago here on Michigan Avenue, and two people were having a full-blown discussion over this, and I kind of know where you're going to fall, but tell us about device protection.
you need device protection. I'm going to go there, but I just think it's really important, especially with AT&T. Our device protection offers you some screen protection. It offers you device protection. You can add things on. You can go as many as 1 to 5 devices. You can connect your whole family with the protection. But I just think it's needed. Things happen. You drop your phone. We live in a really cold climate where it gets some crazy, crazy low numbers. So I just think it's worth it. No matter who you go through, it's necessary in my eyes, because I mean, to file a claim and get that done for free is way better than scrambling. And you know where you can go. You don't have to search on the internet. You don't have to scramble to find someone who can help you out to repair your device. So I think it's a great idea.
And let's say you do have a mishap and you do file a claim. Like, how quickly is that resolved, and how does it get resolved? Like, what are some of the options of ways that it could be resolved?
Yeah, so it really just depends on what issue you're dealing with. AT&T Protect Advantage is a great option for customers because, like I said, if you had a cracked screen, we can definitely help you out with that. You file a claim and within 24 hours, we'll get back to you, and then you find your nearest AT&T store, bring it in. Asurion is who we partner up with that, and we can definitely get you helped out. And for screen protectors and for screen replacements, it's unlimited. So I would definitely recommend looking into it if someone already didn't have it. And then especially, for other carriers, you said you were in the Apple store. I would just always ask about it because everyone has different pricing. Everyone has different benefits. But I always think it's worth looking into.
Is there a list of covered mishaps?
Yes, you can find them on att.com. Everything differs on the plan you're on and how many devices you have connected. So it's just something that you have to look into a little bit, but it's all on our website, att.com. Super easy to find. AT&T Protect Advantage is the name of the game where you're looking.
All right. I think we've covered quite a bit here. And again, throughout the course of the show, yes, we have talked about protecting your pets, protecting your plants, obviously people, and now, yes, protecting your phones here. Abby, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and stay warm.
We will try, for sure. It's 3:40, everyone. Give us 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with the conversation. We've got a lot of kids out here who are either going to have the day off on Friday or they're going to be e-learning because it's so cold outside. So maybe, if they're in SAT prep season right now, it's a day where they could use something brand new that may just get them a head start or help them to get a better score. We'll be right back. All right, just about 3:45, everyone. Time for our final conversation of the day with Robert Ferreira, the communications manager for Gemini app at Google. We have a lot of kids who may be inside, Robert, for tomorrow, as it's going to be extreme cold temperatures that we're experiencing here. If they have the day off, maybe this might be something, this SAT prep might be something to fill their time.
Absolutely. Everyone's hoping for that snow day, you know?
Yeah, and probably not for SAT prep, but tell us about what you all are offering now through Gemini.
Yeah, it's super exciting. So, you know, every day we see students all over the globe really tap into AI tools like Google's Gemini, just help them study a little bit more efficiently, you know, whether it's features of ours like interactive quizzes or, you know, different guided learning features and flashcards and whatnot. It's a really, really powerful tool to streamline the way you learn. And we always know that there's plenty more that we can do. And it's really exciting that just yesterday we introduced the ability to have full-fledged practiced SAT exams directly in the Gemini app, completely free of cost to students.
I want to break out a couple of things from what you just said there. One being how you all came up with this.
Absolutely. So, you know, really the big thing here is meeting students where they are. And we know that so many students are using Gemini as a powerful study tool. And we know that standardized tests are a huge part of that prep. And of course, when it comes to SAT prep specifically, I mean, I wish I had something like this back when I was in high school. It's not easy. There's expensive tutors involved and really rigorous, you know, different sessions after school and whatnot, and to meet students where they are already in the Gemini application, to be able to just jump in and take these standardized tests. We actually worked with the Princeton Review as well to build this best-in-class experience for learners that are coming to Gemini. So it ensures that you're not just practicing, but you're actually prepping with the material that resembles what you're going to see on test day in a really fun and interactive way.
That's really interesting, you know, using the Princeton Review to be able to do this, because, of course, the reason why I was asking you, I mean, a lot of people could, you know, say, oh, we've got SAT prep, but like, how do we know this is actually something that's truly going to help them, that has some evidence-based behind it, research behind it? The other thing I wanted to kind of pull out from what you initially said was the fact that you all are offering this at no cost. I mean, obviously for people who have the app, but at no cost. So talk a little bit more about that changing the game for so many people, because it is costly. A lot of the, you know, kids who have the ability to maybe get to tutors or some type of program, after school program that will help them with this, you know, if you can afford it, great. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that someone who can't afford it shouldn't be able to have something at their ready to help them with the SAT as well.
Absolutely. And it's such a great point. You know, the whole college prep industry, it's a lot. And, you know, to have a tool as powerful as Gemini in the hands of students, free of cost, and, you know, introducing these really powerful capabilities, it goes a really long way. I think the biggest thing, too, is that it really takes learning to a whole new level as well, because when you complete these practice tests, you're receiving immediate feedback. You know, it's highlighting where you did really well with these questions, and then it's also calling out where you need to study a little bit more. And then for things that you don't understand, you know, it's not as just a simple practice test with these questions. You actually ask Gemini to explain the correct answer, to really break it down for you further. You know, by helping identify these gaps, Gemini empowers you to kind of turn those insights into actions. And you can go one step further. So if you're finding that, you know, you're really stuck on, I mean, I was not a math guy myself, you can actually have Gemini create a customized study plan for you. Or understand it in ways, you know, break it down for you in examples, analogies that might be a little bit more clear to you, or visual examples. You know, it really helps you kind of walk into that exam with confidence by not being caught off guard, to understand what you're getting into, and just really help you learn in the way that really works best for you.
Very interesting there. So when do you all suggest students start using this app? I mean, if they're getting ready for the SATs, how far out should they start using this app?
Yeah, I would say the earlier the better. We work with educators to kind of build these tools and make them as robust as possible. And, of course, learning with, working with the leading education companies like the Princeton Review, it really makes it very realistic to what you would expect on the actual SAT exam. It doesn't hurt to get acquainted with these practice tests as soon as possible. Any kind of journey and any part of the high school journey, whether you're a sophomore, junior, just playing around with it and just kind of building those skills and learning what you're actually going to jump into is really, really effective for when you actually take the test. And, as we mentioned in our announcement, we are not stopping with the SAT. We are going to expand to other standardized tests as well and really look forward to building more of those capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just kind of thinking from the standpoint of like if it's putting together a study plan for you or something like that. I mean, is this late stage prep that you want to use this for, or is this early stage prep because maybe you need some months with this, or maybe it's just like, hey, I'll use this a few times right before I actually take it?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of this feature too, is that it can meet you wherever you are in the journey. Whether you're, a student that just wants to get their feet wet and take a few practice SAT exams and just get a feel for what kind of questions and start really early on in the process, that works. Or maybe it's that, you have it in the coming weeks and you're ready to actually take the exam and you want to brush up on specific topics that you may not be as sharp on, or things that you kind of want to just practice over and over again. So you can tell Gemini those things as well too. It's really just customizing it to wherever you are in your college prep journey and making sure that you're getting the most out of it.
That's
it's really
amazing.
Powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when you say that you all are looking at expanding it to other standardized tests, I mean, are we talking like ACT or even for like those who are looking at going to grad school, like, the schools, the standardized tests to get into grad school, or is it more so like AP exams for kids to be able to take AP courses? What are you all looking at?
Yeah, so nothing to share today on the exact test that we'll be supporting, but I assure you it'll span many different standardized tests, which is really exciting. We're really, really just jazzed about getting this in the hands of students, and we just want to continue to iterate and improve this experience, and adding more of those tests and bring them into Gemini is only going to make it more powerful of a tool. So we're really excited, and we'll have more to share on that soon.
Okay, and tell us where we can find the Gemini app.
I mean, just get started. Gemini.google.com. Gemini is easily accessible on the web. We also have an app on both Android and iOS that makes it even easier on the go as well. And yeah, like I said, free to get started, and just really looking forward to see how students use it.
And this isn't like another tier of the Gemini app. This is on just a basic tier of the Gemini app.
Exactly. We have, different AI plans to enhance Gemini subscriptions even further, like Google AI Pro and Ultra. But again, this is free of charge. This is standard Gemini. Really getting this into the hands of students. And also, if you're a college student in the U.S., we're actually offering our AI Pro, the next level up in the paid subscription, for free for students for a year if you have an EDU account. So definitely something to take advantage of. I think it's active for a few more weeks.
Wow. Okay. If you have an EDU account, I remember having an EDU account.
Right?
It's been a few decades, but anyway, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Take care. It's wonderful to see all the different ways that people are trying to, come up with different things to, again, meet students where they are, and especially trying to do it to kind of make education the great equalizer, not adding an additional cost onto this for this SAT prep, because all of these students need to take the SAT or an ACT or something of that sort so that they can further themselves if they're going to college. So why not make it free so that people have more access to it? All right, it's 3:54 right now. Give us a quick second, really 2 minutes, and we'll be right back. $3.56, everyone. File this under your things that can happen when cooler heads prevail. File in your mind, okay? Take a look at the stock market today, and you see where it ended. We are up 306 points. That's where we ended the day here. And of course, it has been such a volatile week. And a lot of that had to do with comments made by the president at the beginning of the week regarding possibly taking Greenland by force. Of course, he has backed off of those comments and even said, just yesterday on Truth Social here that he and NATO Secretary General, the NATO Secretary General, have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland, a concept of a deal, he says. So it appears that, things are just kind of cooling down and the stock market is coming back into the green here. Of course, at the beginning of the week, coming off of those comments, we immediately saw red on the screen. I mean, we took a nosedive, and then we saw a mixed day, and yesterday and today now ending in the green here. So the Dow Jones advanced, as we've seen here, 306 points. That was 0.63%. Let's see, the S&P 500 climbed 0.55%. The NASDAQ advanced 0.91% as well. So great to see some of those averages kind of, post midweek start to climb back up here. And obviously we're hoping that as we go into the end of the week tomorrow, that we'll see more of the green on the screen. The president has plenty to say about where we go from here in terms of Greenland, but the stock market looking good as of today. Listen, we have been talking a lot about extreme temperatures that we're gearing up for tomorrow, so it will for sure be a major topic coming up next on First at 4. We hope that you will bundle up tomorrow, keep you, your pets, your family safe, and we'll see you back here for more Chicago Live from 1 to 4 on Friday. Take care.
Live from Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at 4.
Now at 4, dangerous cold moving into our area. How city officials are now preparing.
Extreme temps causing major trouble